Alrighty, we were pleased to have on today from Ottawa, Ontario, a Canadian professional sports entertainer and a public speaker. He gets crowds at all levels up on their feet and energizes them. He's been hired for many events. I mean, we'll get to that later. But we're pleased to have on today Cameron Hughes, and not the hockey player. Cameron Hughes.
Not the hockey player. Not the wine. The bad dancer.
The bad dancer that gets people on their feet. So
yeah, the T-shirt guy, really. I should have called myself the T-shirt guy from the early days, you know? I'd have T-shirt guy stores around the world.
Crowd hype enthusiast.
There's one.
I've been called a lot of things. It started off as the dancing guy, and then super fan, crowd igniter, that guy.
That guy.
You're not that guy, pal.
Yeah, get away from me guy.
Okay, Cameron, first off, like we said off the record, we appreciate you coming on the show. But how are things with you? What's going on? What's happening? And, obviously we mentioned that you're back to work and back in some events. So what's new and what's happening and what's exciting?
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny thing because I was down in the States in June when the NHL playoffs were on and doing games with no masks. The only mask, was Fleury's mask. And now it's, things are a little different. But the good news is, as we all know, events are happening again. Team executives are like, okay, fans are coming. What can we do? We got to shake things up. We got to move them. So I've been fortunate to do a couple NHL gigs across Canada and some minor league games. And so it's just good to get back out there, connect with the fans. And unfortunately, I have to wear a mask for now in a lot of the venues, but I think that'll change soon.
Just noticed, but really like your shirt.
Thank you.
Just noticed.
I'm from Canada, but I cheer for Vegas.
I like that.
This went over well when they played Montreal.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. My French family disowned me.
Well, maybe you and Rod Peterson, probably you're both Vegas fans living from Canada. So,
yeah.
Cameron, I want to talk about, you're from Ottawa, correct?
I'm from Ottawa. Yeah, I'm in BC now, but born and raised in Ottawa.
Okay.
A government town, a little sleepy. So people laugh when they see what I do. They're like, wait a minute, how did a guy that, grew up in, staunchy, conservative, quiet Ottawa, go on to be the hype guy? I think I did the opposite of what everyone was saying to do, right?
You mentioned you're in BC now. How are you making out with all the flooding issues there?
It's been tough for a lot of people here, but luckily we're on the island, so we're lucky. But yeah, I feel for everyone. It's been a crazy time.
Yeah, it's terrible seeing it all over the news. It's just some of the scenes you see. It's hard to fathom how bad it is.
Yeah. I think we need more reminders to live each day, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
100%.
Cameron, so growing up in Ottawa, let's talk about a young Cameron Hughes, some of your hobbies. What were you doing? Was it hockey? Was it soccer? Was it baseball? Was it sports in general? I mean, what were you up to as a youngster?
Yeah, I was the kid who tried a lot of things, but never kind of went past the, hey, you're good at this or you're good enough at this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I played a lot of different sports as a kid. I think, young kids growing up in Canada, we were lucky to kind of roam free. And I think the roaming free is what sort of, in many ways opened my eyes and concept to socialization, because I was just the guy that was always out there trying to have some fun and trying to bring fun to people, whether it was through the sports I played or after, you know what I mean? Because there's a lot of, as we know, there's a lot of bonding and a lot of cool moments that happen when you gather to play sports. So I was always the guy trying to, keep the fun going,
Absolutely. So speaking of that, we have to talk about your career and it's different than most 9-to-5s, that's for sure. So, but I like different. And I want to talk about, the sports entertainer. You've been doing this for quite some time. Walk us through how it all started. And, you mentioned off the record how long you've been doing it for, but people that don't know, just give us a background on the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I was in Ottawa. I was in and out of university, kind of like Frank the Tank was in old school, trying to figure out what to do with my life. And, my buddy says, hey, do you want to come to the Sens game? They were playing at the Civic Center before the new arena. And I'm like, sure, let's go. So it's Saturday night, we go out to the game and, we all go to sporting events to have fun, to let loose, to cheer on the team. And I don't know, I always joke with people, like maybe our feet were frozen or our hands were frozen, but there was no one was clapping. No one was into the game. So it was a perfect storm, guys. It was like, third period, 8 minutes to go. We're down by a goal to Winnipeg. I look at my buddy. In the middle, even my seats were in the perfect location, like dead center, which was rare. I always used to sit up in the top level, and I was just like, I've had enough. So I got up and I started to go crazy. And the section in front of me is like, what the heck's he doing? And they just realized I was like, that guy or girl at an event that just says, okay, we need to do something. And it was like, that was the moment, but my need to do something was in front of 10,000 people. Right. So the crowd looks at me, they're all a little stunned, and go back down and sit back down, and kind of like this adrenaline's going through me. There's a buzz in the arena, and I joke with people that could have been it, right? A funny moment. They happen all the time where someone does something in their seat and ha, ha, ha. But I kept going, and the next whistle they played, I think it was Everybody Dance Now. And I got up from my seat and I went to the aisle, started to go absolutely berserk up and down the aisle and losing my mind. And the crowd's just looking at me going, I think this is really happening. And that was it. I mean, I really believe that. Well, I've lived it. I know that I wouldn't be talking to you guys. I know that I wouldn't have had, 1,500 events in 41 states and 9 provinces under my belt had I just got up the first time. It would just been a funny little hit, right?
So is there any liquid courage behind that the first couple of times?
It's a very fair question. When I used to speak to high school kids, they were dying to ask me that. Mommy, Daddy, is he sober? The first night I was 100% sober, which is funny looking back on it, which I've sort of done. It's like Saturday night. Why weren't we having at least a beer? You know what I mean? And we weren't. My buddy and I, we weren't. But the next time when they asked me to come back, my buddy and I went to the bar across the street, this like perfect, it's not there anymore, Villa Deli, this hole in the wall bar across from the arena. I think I had 6, 7, 8 drinks before I got to the game when they asked me to come back. And my buddy that was with me convinced me, like every shot and every beer, yeah, I'll get up with you. It'll be great. We'll get this whole place rocking. Of course he doesn't. And I do. And I realize you can't get a place rocking after that many drinks.
So,
Wow.
Cameron, you've got a way of bringing people together, getting people out of their comfort zones. Is that a hard thing to do? I mean, I'm assuming it's nerve wracking the first few times, but you've been doing it so long. How easy is it to do now?
Well, that's a thoughtful question, because there's a couple ways to look at that. There's the, if I was to go to a game tonight and there's 18,000 people, I still get the nerves and excited. I'm not nervous, but I get the nerves. And I've built up a muscle of putting myself out there and what it feels like and what it looks like and how to react to people. So, for me, it's, I have the confidence now that I, didn't have in the early days of what to do with the crowd. There's a lot of people that we know, we can make a list now. Our buddy John or Laura, whoever, could get up in front of a crowd and do something funny. Mm-hmm. But it's like what you do with the crowd after you do something funny that also, I believe, is why I've had this career, right? Because once you get their attention and you win them over, I think that's truly when, and I've thought about this in a lot of different ways because I wrote a book on it, but that's when the magic happens, right? Because that's when they're with you, right?
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, you've been all over the place. What are some of the more unique places that you've done some of your performances? Like something that's kind of out there, like, wow, I never thought I'd be here.
Man, the list is long, but the first thing that I thought of was Belfast, Northern Ireland. I went over there and I think it was 2012. And I landed in London to connect, and there's like bombs going off in Belfast. And I was like, maybe this isn't the best time to go. And it wasn't like the serious back in the day type of bombings, but it was, there was some action on the ground, so to speak. So I get to Belfast, and the GM of the team's a Canadian guy. And he's like, yeah, we're having some troubles in town, but don't worry. The jerseys are teal, so we're neutral. I'm like, oh, thanks. So the next thing I know, I'm in a Jersey in the local open air shopping mall, handing out tickets to make sure there's enough people at the game. And I was like, should I get paid in advance for this?
That's unreal. Cameron, 2010, the Olympics, we all remember what happened there, especially on the hockey side of things, but just in general, we're Canadian, right? I think we're pretty passionate about that. You're there, not competing in the Olympics, but you're doing your job. Walk us through just how special that was for you, and maybe just walk us through the experience.
Yeah, the Olympics in Vancouver was crazy. A friend of mine found the name of the person. I mean, a lot of these gigs comes from finding the right person, right? Who's going to say, I'll give you a shot. I think that a lot of people forget that. Like, oh, you're at the NBA finals. It's like, well, how did that happen? Right. You don't just show up and go, I'm here. Right. So I got in the door. It took a while. They thought they originally, you guys will love this. I sent them my demo and they're like, oh yeah, we should get you to do some curling. I'm like, you didn't watch my demo, did you? So doing the Olympics for a guy from Ottawa who, I was in Salt Lake, but not officially. So to be officially there with, a pass and to be asked to represent Canada was, there's no greater thrill in my career, than that full experience. And then to be there for the women's and men's gold medal games. I was right behind Crosby when he scored. Jumped in the crowd, hugged people, took a picture with me where everyone's celebrating, ran downstairs to my locker room, showered, grabbed all my stuff, put it in a bag because I had a stage manager who was flying back that night. He had to drop it off where I was staying, and I was like, all right, let's party. And I had been so disciplined, and so I was doing two games a day, for 13 days. So it was crazy, and saying yes to every opportunity as
and
well.
A lot of work, I suppose, too. I mean, you got to have a lot of energy to do 2 games per day. You know what I mean? We've seen.
Yeah, I went into it in the best shape of my life. I tell the story because I think it's a good story. I hired a nutritionist. I hired a trainer. They're paying me well. This is an opportunity of a lifetime. Don't mess it up. Mm-hmm. Don't go out. Don't be the guy out partying because you can't show up the next day and do 2 games. And I was in the zone. I was just I was there, and it was my gold medal moment in many ways. And I challenged a lot of people to have theirs, and I'll never forget, the high of that, just the high. And I was on TV all over the place, and this is amazing, and people recognizing you and dancing on tables after Canada won in Vancouver. Just it was electric, right? And 2 weeks later, I'm flying to South Dakota to perform in a Rapid City Rush hockey game. And I was like, oh my God, what? Walking through the parking lot of my hotel from my Howard Johnson's to the arena. And then I got into the locker room and I gave myself an attitude check. And I was like, there's 5,000 people here tonight. How lucky am I to be part of that with them, right? Exactly, yeah. Get over yourself, buddy.
Yeah. So you moved up from a Hojo to a Travelodge then?
Not yet.
So Cameron, what are some of the best experiences you've done? I know Drew and I were looking, over some video footage. Malcolm, when he took over the show, that was pretty cool. And also, what were some of your worst experiences?
Yeah, well, your Malcolm reference was the Vancouver Sevens rugby, where I started to dance, and I turn around and there's a bunch of young kids dancing, and then there's one kid who won't stop dancing, and then the crowd, I move out of the way and he takes over. Malcolm's at the time 18-year-old boy with Down syndrome. And if you watch the video more than once, I've watched it 100 times or more, it's still, to me, there's still part of me that's that was planned. Look at it. How was it not planned? Yeah. And it was not planned. You know what I mean? But how crazy was it that I was in that aisle, right? And I think that that's what I've learned, guys, is you just, when those moments happen, and whether it's at a big event like that, or like I said, a minor league game in, some of these smaller towns, it's you gotta own them, and that to me is the part of the magic. And it doesn't matter the scale, it's the connection, right? So, some of the best moments, doing 5 NBA finals in a row, 4 in Cleveland, 1 in Toronto, being on a parade, being in the parade in Cleveland, on a float with Machine Gun Kelly, the rapper. That was kind of weird. I don't know if that was best or worst.
That was,
no, it was cool. That was a little nuts. And the worst, when I got injured, when I've been hospitalized, a bunch of different times for some pretty, sprained, falling down in front of Mark Cuban, and Cuban's calling the paramedics. I felt the craziest one, craziest one was the ECHL finals in Charleston, South Carolina. And there's 12,000 people, packed house against Alaska, fell down the stairs, and everyone thought it was a bit. And I'm like, I'm not a stunt man. You know what I mean? And so I got up, and they were like, oh, he's serious. So I go and I get iced, and the doctor's like, you're an idiot. and then I come back with like my ankle iced up on crutches, and I get the crowd going for the rest of the game.
That's unbelievable. Jay, I have to ask this one question though. In that same aisle at the rugby game, how about the one guy dressed up as Ace Ventura? Like, what was that about?
Well, it was a Halloween sort of festival there. Like people dress up, and it's
Was
like
he the only guy dressed up? There was nobody else dressed up in that video.
I was waiting for Dan Marino to come down the aisle, but he was not coming down the aisle.
Well, I mean, there's some interesting outfits, but yeah, most people get dressed up. It's like a Halloween costume festival thing, and yeah, I mean, there's so many. I could do a full TED talk, a 20-minute talk on just that video of the characters and the people and the timing and the spontaneity of. I mean, we know you go to sporting events, and I've said to a lot of people, sports producers and everyone over the last year and a half with this pandemic, I'm like, when things open up, rip up the script and stop like overproducing events, right? Like let moments breathe.
Yeah, let things just happen.
Yeah, let things and stop like, you guys wouldn't believe how many times I'm like, okay, that was amazing. Huge play. This just happened. And I'll tell my stage manager who has a walkie-talkie to go to the producer and say, okay, next whistle, let's do this. They're like, no, we can't. We got to sell the, I don't know, tulips from the local florist. I'm like, no, you don't. You can do it at the next time out. You know what I mean?
So speaking of your stage manager, do you pick your own soundtracks when you're at venues?
I mean, you pick a few songs that you like at the right time, but otherwise, it's not my show. So I always like to just go in and adapt. Yeah, go with the flow. But there's certain moments where if I know I'm doing a big hit that you want to make sure it's not, Adele or something.
Hello.
It's me. Okay. I want to bring up that you're an author, and that's awesome because I can really read half the time. So you're an author, wrote a book. Can we talk about it? King of Cheer. Walk us through what that means to you.
Well, a buddy of mine said I'm the only friend of his that wrote a book that's never read one. So that felt really good. And I looked at him and I said, one more than you, buddy. Yeah. So, I've been collecting these stories for, my whole career, my whole life, basically. And for some reason, I've kept everything as well. I mean, I'm holding in my hand a tape of my first interview on the Fan 590 from 1995. Cool. Like I've kept everything, every article. So when I went to sit down a couple of years ago, when I committed to putting my book together, not only did I have journals and, documents on a laptop, but I had all the sort of paraphernalia and articles to help me jog my memory and help me go, oh, wait, that night you performed in Odessa in a rodeo barn, and on and on and on, and all these other sort of crazy moments. So the book is a collection of, short stories that have a narrative, and then as part of it's a narrative of, starting off and, kind of not making the team. And, my mother passed away at a young age from breast cancer, and she inspired me to, to lead with my heart. And I feel like, if you do that, you can make a lot of mistakes, but you can't go wrong, Yeah. And then, then I talk about sort of some of the better, fun, crazy moments from the minor league games to, performing at center court at the US Open.
So out of all the venues you've done, I mean, I'm curious, I'm sure our listeners are too. What is the one place you were just, why am I here? Why am I doing this here? Like, that oddball, we understand NHL games, NBA stuff. Like, I mean, have you been at like a cricket final or something? Something that's just really, really weird. And you're going, I can't believe I'm doing this here.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was a cricket match in Barbados. Canada was playing in a cricket tournament. So that was weird. And then there was a rain delay. So it just wasn't going to happen. Like they weren't going to play the rest of the day. So it's the first time I've ever drank with fans in the crowd. We were shooting some promos as well. So we just started drinking rum with fans, and we started filming me dancing with fans, and it was awesome. I think the bigger one is just the US Open tennis. I mean, they said no to me, like, no way, 2010. And then eventually they said, all right, we'll try you out, right? Mm-hmm. And them being open-minded led to me performing there for 8 years and, some of the best moments of my career.
So speaking of that, in 2011, I can't say his name properly, so I'm gonna let you say it, but you got Novak to dance on the court.
Djokovic.
There it is, after his match. How special was that?
Yeah, Novak and I had a few sort of interactions, and then it led to the big moment where he was being interviewed live on ESPN after a match, the early rounds where it wasn't as, tense and serious. Mm-hmm. And Brad Gilbert, the host, says, there he is. There's the guy. And they call me to come down. I'm like, you're kidding me, right? Or is this really happening? One of those moments. And it was live on ESPN. And there's the big security guard that you see in the video going, stop. And Novak's like, no, he's with me. I'm like, yeah, I'm with Novak. And then I put an I Love New York t-shirt on him and, strangle him. And he starts twirling it. And I mean, it was surreal. It was crazy. He won it that year. No big deal.
Yeah.
You guys still chummy, hey?
Yeah, he doesn't know my name, but yeah, we're really good friends. So, and then, I mean, this is like the best story of what leads to something of not saying no, like to anyone listening, where you're like, you get the no. They eventually said yes to me. And then like a year after that Novak moment, I'm performing at Roger Federer's charity event where I'm surprising Roger Federer at his charity event because his agent who called me said, I'm the only one to ever make Roger laugh during a match. And I was like, what? I didn't know. Like, there's a video that's got like 5 million views of Roger. He's supposed to be focused and he's watching me. And so I did it for 2 years in a row, and he's backstage and he's giving me advice on how to get the crowd going. And I'm just like, am I really, back to your thing? That was probably in the moment you own it, but then you walk away and you're like, oh my God. And if you're not having that, then you probably shouldn't be there. Right.
So have you ever tried, I'm just curious, to get on, I'm imagining it would be a little tough, but doing like a Masters or a British Open or any golf event, like that's got to be tough, I'm guessing.
It's interesting, guys. I've had conversations with a lot of different events and then they kind of chicken out or it doesn't work out for whatever reason.
Like waste
but yeah, I talked to the
Waste Management Open. Waste Management Open would be perfect for you.
On the
yeah, I think it would in ish. There's also like, do they really need me?
It'd get a hell of a lot louder, I think.
Ish. Yeah, you're right. I mean, at the right moment, if they would let me come down on the green and like do the t-shirts and then you get like Bubba Watson to do it with you or whatever. Yeah, I mean, there could be some fun there.
There's no spikes, eh?
No spikes. But then again, you flip that conversation, you go, well, okay, we don't need you at the Waste Management, but maybe at like an event at the European Tour that's fun, but needs a little, little more fun, right?
Well, so speaking of golf, and you've traveled everywhere, it seems like, do you golf?
Not well.
He plays.
I do everything okay. I'm the guy that's safe,
Safe player.
So Cameron can play with me, but not with you, Drew. Okay, there's the answer.
Okay, so where are some of the places that you've got to play golf?
Dominican Republic on a pretty cool course. I went to the golf course where the European Tour is based. I took $160 cab ride to go there to have a meeting about getting hired. And my driver the guy waited for me in the parking lot and they didn't hire me. So that was a fun golf experience. A classic case of bet on yourself.
What about, okay, so you're living in BC and whereabouts again?
I'm in Victoria right now.
Okay. So do you play at a home track there in Victoria or no?
No. Are you no.
No.
You want me to? It's just leading somewhere?
Yeah, we need you golfing, Cameron. You
need me golfing. I'm a lefty.
Okay, we don't need you golfing.
It gives me a chance.
Okay, you want a story about golf?
Oh yeah, love stories.
2002, I'm in Salt Lake. I'm hosting a TV show on the Comedy Network in Canada. We get access to Mike Weir, who lives there. It's 2002. I'm skiing at a local ski resort with Mike Weir and Brian Stemmel, who is a Canadian Olympic skier, one of the best ever. And we're filming this interaction. We're filming us skiing. We're filming Mike and I on the chairlift. He wins the Masters 2 months later, right? Yep. In April 2002. Yep. We lost the footage of us skiing together and hanging out. Oh. Are you kidding me? I mean, I think I would have been a TV star. Well, yeah, that would have been my break.
You're the reason behind him winning, probably, Cameron.
Yeah. The pep talk on that chairlift might have something to do with it.
Well, your tongue was stuck to the pole. Like,
yeah, probably. Yeah, among other things.
Okay, let's go to our segment, questions from the gallery, sponsored by Molson Coors. Meet new Busy Hard Seltzer with 100 calories per 355 milliliters. This variety pack is something for everyone to enjoy, including pineapple mango, blueberry pomegranate, strawberry kiwi, and black cherry lime flavors. Please drink and drive responsibly. Don't drink and drive. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Call a cab.
You want to try that again?
No, we're good. Okay. So don't drink and drive. There it is.
There you go.
Favorite beer?
Oh my God, Creemore.
Sorry?
Creemore. It's a micro beer from Ontario.
Fair enough.
Hold on. I wanted to ask you, Dan. So when you're doing all these, like pumping the crowd up, you're doing it sober?
100% sober. Like I said, only 2 times that I've drank. One, the second time the Senators asked me back, and 2, when I was in Barbados at a cricket tournament, drinking rum during a rain delay.
And I'm guessing it's because A, you're being paid by the club, and B, it's an insurance policy.
And C, it's impossible to perform at that level.
Okay, there you
I
go.
mean, that's, yeah. I mean, I've had back when I started out, I had team executives say, hey, if you need a few beers. And, I realized that very fast that once you get into the right headspace, you don't need any, you find your own ticket to how to get in the right headspace, state of mind, right?
Right. So you've been to many, 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 many sporting events. Of all the sporting events, what's your personal favorite sport?
Hockey is definitely my favorite thing. I think I add a lot of more value to hockey as well.
And who's your team?
I've loved doing, who's my team? Who's paying me this week?
Good answer.
I mean, that's a tough one because the other night I almost tweeted this out. 3 of my favorite teams are playing tonight. And then it's like, wait a minute, like you can't, I'm neutral, except, I've done 65 games in Vegas, 65.
Holy wow.
So the cover of my book's a picture of me in Vegas. So I have like I was there the preseason game, I've been there through it all. I've watched, I remember there's a picture of me kissing a woman's stomach who's pregnant in the October 2017. And now that kid's like 4. So I've watched kids grow up, in some of these markets. And I'm from Ottawa. So, I mean, if Ottawa's playing Vegas, it would not be a fun day for me, but I'm from Ottawa.
Okay. How many T-shirts do you wear to a game? Or when you're not
the most I've ever had, like in a locker room when I show up, is I think it was 320 in Cleveland at a Cavs game.
And how many?
So my helper would be like walking like this, and then the most I've ever worn is like 20 something at a time, which is like, you can't breathe, right?
When do you need a
take
nutritionist?
Yeah. Speaking of nutrition. Yeah, exactly. I used to be a size medium too, right?
Dude, I would have pitters through all those sweaters or all those shirts. You're having just sweaty pitters shirts for me coming from the crowd.
I listened to my first interview ever the other day, and it said, who gets the last shirt of the night? And I was like, oh, that's a special fan gets that one. Wink, wink.
So Cameron, golf wise, we're going to get back to some golf questions. Who would be your ultimate foursome? Anybody you could play golf with, who would be the foursome?
Foursome in golf?
Yeah. Anybody you want.
Mike Weir, Roger Federer, Connor McDavid.
That's a nice one. That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, I like that.
You're about we've done
Paige Spiranak would be my caddy.
Who?
Oh yeah.
Paige Spiranak.
Yeah. Yep.
You're like our 100th and 101st guest, I believe, and you're number 5 that hasn't said Tiger Woods. So you're out there.
No, I'm good.
All right.
Okay. I think once you started doing this, like the T-shirt throwing stuff, they were like, well, we need to get those guns that shoot the T-shirts out. Will you ever use those?
That's the most insulting things that anyone's ever asked me.
Really?
No, I will never use a T-shirt gun. Okay. I don't need to. Look at this. So
I got 2.
I got 2. This is in June. There's video evidence of this. I'm at a Vegas game. I'm coming up the aisle. Derek Carr had rang the horn at the game, and he's sitting in the section there where I'm walking up, and someone's like, "Hey, Derek Carr's up there. Derek Carr's up there." I'm like, "Great." I don't know Derek Carr. So I take a minute and I see him, and I'm like, "Hey, Derek, get up." And I'm like 20 rows away at least. I take the T-shirt. I don't even tie it. I tighten the T-shirt. I get him to stand up. Everyone's watching. I gun the greatest throw of my career right in the pocket, right in the hands. And he was looking at me like, that was insane. The crowd went nuts. Some lady filmed it. It was the best. So I don't know what my point is, but I try to get good aim. I try to make the T-shirt a special delivery every game if I can.
I love that. That's awesome. Troy?
You go ahead. I got one stewing here.
Okay. Well, I just insulted the man. So best golf course.
No, I'm over it. But I mean, I did start out in 95, like kind of 95. And I remember going to a baseball winter meetings with my booking agent at the time in like 97, 98. And they had like our booth where we were selling halftime acts, which was weird enough as it was. And then the booth next to us, which was the T-shirt cannons. And I was like, what a weird life I'm living, you know? And looking back at it, it's like, it's just so funny to think that the different sort of history of things that work in sports, right? I mean, even from the acts that my agent at the time was representing to, you know, T-shirt guns and cannons and how that's just even, you know, exploded. I mean, it's such a huge thing.
So Cameron, growing up, like I'm going back to your elementary days, high school days. Were you the guy? Were you the class clown? Were you the guy that had everyone, you know, laughing, having a good time?
In grade school, I was sort of fun, but not completely out there. And then once high school hit, I just kind of, you know, after my mom passed away, unfortunately, was the spark that just made me go like, what have you got to lose, you know? And I became Mr. Spirit and school president. And then I went to university. I wore a watermelon on my head. And I just kind of like, I didn't care. I cared, which is ironic. I actually cared a lot. I cared a lot about people having fun.
Right.
But I didn't care what, you know, I of course I cared what people think about me. Every entertainer who says they don't is lying. You just get used to the balance between do they like me and does it matter, right?
Mm-hmm. What's the next gig you got going on?
The next gig I have is Minnesota with the Wild, and then I'm doing some rodeo in Vegas, doing the Golden Knights, and putting it out there.
So I guess to piggyback that question, how often are you home?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a weird question because of the, you know, the state of the last few years, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I like to go on road trips and go hard, like go for a couple of weeks and then come back, chill, and then go out again. But at the same time, I'm pretty excited to get out there now because it's been a while, and you know, I haven't performed at a Wild game in almost 2 years. I haven't performed at a Vegas game since like last June, so that's not that bad. But yeah, once you get out there, it's great.
So I mean, during the pandemic, were you doing any team bonding stuff via Zoom or no?
I did a lot of weird stuff during Zoom, like some really weird, like virtual meetings and crashing meetings, and
You're throwing shirts at the camera. You're like, hey, take it.
literally, yeah. You know, sales meetings would hire me because they're like, we need to do something different. Bring in the crazy T-shirt guy. And then I would do a lot of promotional videos for people just because it was the right thing to do. You know what I mean? Like, you know, someone's bat mitzvah. I'm like, oh, FaceTime her. Sure. But it was fun to say yes. And then it got really awkward. Like a guy in Italy is like, hey, I met you at the US Open. I'm really lonely. Do you want to say hi? I'm like, okay. Next thing I know, I'm not kidding. I was just like, sure. I mean, you know, I've got a friend in Milan now.
That's... Hi.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's funny. It's amazing.
And then a guy, but here's the funny part about that. Sorry. And then I was on an Instagram live, which I used to do a lot of because it was fun. And then a guy from Minnesota who I met at a game ended up buying the guy from Milan's father a book and sending it to him because he heard the story. And he's like, this whole keep spreading the cheer vibe. So
it's just amazing what the pandemic has done for humanity. Honestly, it's changed a lot of people in different ways and mostly positive ways too, right? I mean, when you're doing Zoom meetings every day and, you know, you want to talk, you know, we couldn't talk to our grandfather. We had to do it over Zoom. Well, that was just a gong show in itself, but it made everybody laugh, right? You got 12 family members there. Grandpa's snoring in the corner on the camera and we're just basically, hey guys, how you doing? You know, like
it's not our grandpa. That's their own room. Like, so yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it can, at the end of the day, we realize how much we need to be connected, right? I think that's why I'm so happy to be back out there. It's why, you know, you see some crowds just electric, you know, you still see Canadian, you know, NHL crowds on their, you know, sitting down with a minute left when they're tied 2-2, and it drives me nuts.
Right. I know Drew's.
Why is that, guys? We got a problem.
It's frustrating. Like I when I watch a game, and I don't know what it is. Everyone just like this on their phones, right? And like not into the game. Like, aren't you paying good money to watch the best people at their jobs do it? Like, enjoy it. Get up.
There's a weird thing though, like, because collectively, I think Canadian NHL markets, you could put a Canadian NHL market during the playoffs up against the bigger US market, not show what team it is and just have the crowd noise. And I think it'd be comparable for the most part. But you go look at a regular season game and you're like watching the last 2 minutes. And I'm like, I've been at these games. It's like Edmonton, Calgary. And I'm like, there's a minute to go. Calgary just tied it, or it's 2-2. Like, this team needs you. Ask every player on both benches if the crowd makes a difference. It's a unanimous yes.
Yeah.
So, like, show up.
And it's funny you say that, Cameron. Like, I've been to every major sporting event. I've only been to 2 NBA games. And to this day, when anyone asks me, I always say NBA is by far the best live sport because the crowd is always interactive. There's always something going on, whether it be music being playing in the background, guys throwing T-shirts into the crowd, guys sweeping the floor at one end while the play is being at the other. I don't know. I always say NBA is probably the live best sport to be at. But what's your opinion?
Well, I mean, the thing with NBA is because of the amount of scoring, it's easier, right? It helps, and that's why there's the close games and the back and forth and, 30 seconds left, everyone on your feet. It's different because of the NHL and the flow of the game, but it doesn't excuse people from not getting up with to me, if you're playing Winnipeg against Montreal and you're in Montreal and it's 2-1 Montreal, get on your feet to cheer on the boys so that Winnipeg doesn't tie it.
Right.
Or if you're down by a goal, get on your feet. Right. So I think there's times and there's no excuses. There's other times where I get it. You're enjoying the game. You're with your friends. You don't always have to be involved. Right.
Mm-hmm.
See, and I always felt like when I would go a scout for hockey, obviously I'm doing my job. If I was there as a fan, I always noticed in the Western Hockey League, for example, because we watch it all the time, during the whistle and there's a timeout or whatever, it's and then they get really loud and then the puck drops.
Gone.
Yeah.
Library.
Well, so maybe we should make a sign saying you are allowed to cheer during the game.
Yeah, no kidding.
Exactly. And that's home advantage, right? Like you don't want a road team coming into your barn being like, this is easy, right? I want people yelling at us, but I think a lot of the respect and characters just, I think, change from the crowd, right? It's all quiet and we don't want to say anything too bad. And
I think Drew said a perfect thing though, too, is these things are out there all the time and there's, people are on them a lot more than watching the game, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, they should turn off the Wi-Fi in the third period.
Have you done any baseball, Cameron?
I've done a lot of baseball. Yeah, I used to do the Blue Jays back in the day. And then I've done a lot of minor league baseball. I did the Dodgers game too. So the minor league baseball is a lot of fun because, you're outside and they promote a lot of events at minor league baseball.
Right. Now, my last question is maybe we can get you, to Regina. We'll put you on a shuttle bus, get you 20 minutes out to Pilot Butte, maybe get you at a Pilot Butte Storm game while Drew's coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I have a list of places I've always wanted to go, and that's on there, which is so ironic.
Yeah, but you have to throw Canadian Goose.
If not, I'll add it to it. You know what I mean?
You'd have to throw jackets though, because it's freezing in our rink, unfortunately. So
okay, yeah.
You can't throw T-shirts.
How many people play in your rink? I mean, how many people does it sit?
Playoffs,
50?
500.
Okay.
50? You say 50?
50. I meant like two teams. That was a joke.
Oh, I know. I'm over it now.
Hey, that sounded like somebody else.
Yeah, Cameron. Okay, Cameron.
I'm over it too.
My last question for you, and I think Troy's, and we always do this. And this is a great guest today. Okay, so a piece of advice for a young listener or an old listener, whatever it is, on what it takes, to make it in life, whether it's a doctor or a professional hockey player or a sports entertainer or just, doing what you want to do in life. Just some good thought on that, and yeah, wrap it up.
You got to go with what you first think about, which for me is keep showing up. I mean, I looked at a demo tape recently that I did in 20 some years ago. And I looked at the videos and I'm like, well, some of the gigs that were in the video, I didn't even get paid to do. I just showed up to say, hey, this is what I can do. The US Open didn't want to pay me. They paid me $1, but because I showed up, it led to, Roger Federer has a quote on the back of my book. And I'm not saying that to be, oh, look at me, because I've never done anything to be, look at me. It's more, look how much fun we can have if we just let go a bit. And I think show up for a lot of people is important, because you're not always going to have that belief muscle going, but the more you show up, the more you do. And the more opportunities come, and the more you're planting the seeds, so to speak, and you're watering those opportunities by showing up. And my book, really, my story is about showing up. I showed up at a game and I wanted to do something different. And now I get to show up at, over 1,000+ games around the world. And I'm super grateful for that,
Awesome. I know you said last question, but 'tis the season. We are approaching Christmas. Speaking of your book, King of Cheer, where can our listeners grab it?
CameronHughes.tv. I have black and white and I have color. Can you believe it?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cameron Hughes.
A little King of Cheer in color. It's hard to contain your excitement. I can feel it.
You said CameronHughes.tv?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know at one point, you want an interesting fact?
I love interesting facts.
At one point, SaskTel Center was the top 3 places I'd performed in my career. You didn't know that.
Really?
Really?
You didn't know that, did you?
I did not know that. And why?
Well, World Juniors, CIS, Memorial Cup, Blades, Rush.
Huh.
Wow.
You ever do wrestling?
No, that's funny, but I don't know. I wouldn't mind trying it,
That'd be cool.
Be a good crowd.
Or UFC. That'd be kind of fun.
Well, they go with the right attitude. They're ready to rumble, so to speak, right?
Yeah. Cameron, I appreciate coming on today. Troy does as well.
Very much so.
I hope we can do.
Who's Troy? What?
Right.
Cut. Edit that out.
No
You
edit.
guys are beauties. I appreciate you having me. Enjoyed the chat and the thoughtful questions.
Likewise.
Appreciate it, Cameron. We'll have to do it again. Best of luck with all the, what do you call them? Events. Have fun. Throw as many t-shirts as you can. Don't use one of those t-shirt guns, because you got 2 guns.
Oh, you were listening. Good. I'm glad.
Cameron Hughes, everybody. Thank you so much, Cameron.
Thanks, guys.
Merry Christmas.